Well, we're going to move right along. If I can get my iPad to stay up so I can read the agenda here. And I'm going to call the business meeting of GEDA to order. And right off the bat, I'm going to ask my friend Bob White, who is chair of the nominating committee, to come forward with a report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of my privileges as a past chair as the chair of the nominating committee for GEDA, and I want to thank our committee, which was made up of the standing officers here, as well as 3 members from the membership of GEDA at large. We had Bill Bryant, Chris Pumphrey, and Amanda Shalendra. So thank you all for your work. This is a very serious part of our business and what we do for the organization, looking at the leadership, carrying forward the programs, the activities of GEDA. So this is a responsibility we don't take lightly. And it's to acknowledge people who've really been involved, who've been committed to GEDA and the work that they've done. So, Chair, on behalf of the nominating committee, I'm pleased to be able to present our recommendations, our nominations for Chairman, Angie Giesling; for first Vice Chair, Tim Evans; second Vice Chair, Greg Wright; immediate past chair, which will be a very happy position, for Joanne Lewis. And again, I said this is something we take very seriously, and the responsibility and really looking to the future of this organization. We're celebrating our 50th year, and we're looking forward for another strong 50 years, and that really comes from you, the membership, and from our leaders. And so we looked long, we looked hard, we looked at people who had served GEDA and who had been exemplary in their work for this organization, for their community, or their company. And again, this is a tremendous honor, it's a tremendous challenge, and a tremendous pledge of faith to these people, because it begins a long succession of working through the officer chairs. In looking for that right person to lead this organization going forward, to add to our officer ranks, it is our nomination for your new Secretary-Treasurer. If we had a drum roll from last night, it would help build the anticipation. Our nomination, thank you, our nomination for Secretary-Treasurer, Anna Chafin. And really leading and carrying on the work of the organizations, the board of directors, and the policy development, and the other things we do. So, continuing for one more year on our board of directors, Cochran, Tom Croto, Ricky McGee, and Andrea Strayer. Continuing for 2 more years, which will go through December 2015, Mary Ellen McClanahan, Jeff Mullis, Stallworth, and Greg Torrey. And finally, continuing for 3 more years through December 2015, Brian Dill, Maceo Rogers, Shalendra, and Mike Lee. And representing GEDA as ex officio officers in his new capacity next month when he comes on board, Chris Carr and Gretchen Corbin, the Commissioner of the Department of Community Affairs, a CCE representative, the Georgia Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, Candace Boothby. Madam Chair, that represents our recommendations, our nominations to the board. Now, I don't believe our committee report needs a second for that, but we're presenting that to you and to the membership.
Thank you, Bob. Bob is right. The report also serves as a motion and does not require a second. Do I have any nominations from the floor? Have a motion and a second to close the nomination. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Great. Let me rename the officers and the board for 2014. And if you would, as I call your name, if you're here, just come up front, right down in front of the stage, because people need to see who you are. Our incoming chair, Angie Giesling. First vice chair, Tim Evans. Second vice chair, Greg Wright. Me, as immediate past chair, Secretary Treasurer Anna Chafin. Our board of directors, continuing for 1 more year, Elise Cochran, Tom Croto, Ricky McGee, Andrea Schreier, 2 more years on the board, Mary Ellen McClanahan, our Vanna of door prizes, Jeff Mullis, Charles Stallworth, and Greg Torrey. And with 3 more years to go, Brian Deal, Maceo Rogers, Amanda Shalindra, and Mike Worley. Our executive ex officio directors, Chris Carr, who is not with us yet, and Gretchen Corbin, and Candace Boothby as the GACCE representative. Give them all a hand while we get a photo. Thank y'all so very much. You may be seated. Wait. Wait, he's still taking pictures. I'm just trying to be in charge. Thank you all so much. And at this time, I would like to bring Angie Giesling on stage with me. Give her another big round of applause because she's going to deserve it with her work coming up. Do you have any comments you would like to share at this point before? Yeah, let's go ahead with the awards. Great idea. Okay, going off this year, we kind of move our agenda around as we would have to. Our board members that have served that are rolling off, although Anna is moving up as treasurer, we would like to present them awards for their time of service. Anna Chafin, come on up. Nancy Cobb, Missy Kendrick, and Sarah Lynn Stafford. Now come on up. You really don't know how awkward it feels to stand up and be smiling for a picture and everybody watching you. At this time, I will ask Angie to come up and share some appointments for 2014.
I have the privilege of selecting committee chairs coming in as the chairman, and I'd like to announce those, and please stand when I call your name. But one reminder first. All of you in the room need to be on some committee. It's the best way to get involved in GEDA, and as we always say, we're like broken records. You get what you put in is what you're going to get out of this organization, and it's very rewarding to serve on these committees. So if you will stand, if you're here as committee chairs for business expansion and retention, Andrea Greiner. Communications and marketing, Kevin Johnson. Public policy, thank you again, Elmer Stansel. Young professionals, Annie Baxter. Development Authority execs, Cal Ray. Business recruitment, Wiley Harrison. Sponsorship, big thank you, Mike Worley. And you have one volunteer already. Senator Jeff Mullis is ready to roll in the dough, so go seek him out. Membership and awards, Missy Kendrick. Professional development, Justin Strickland. And then we had something different we added in the last year, and we call them SIGs, and they're special interest groups. Those are for education and workforce, Laura Mathis, entrepreneurship, Heather Holder, infrastructure, Jay Flesher, natural resources, Bill Bryant, non-traditional economic development, Tiffany Andrews, rural development, Candace Scott, and want to thank all of you. The next point of privilege is for me to thank Joanne Lewis for her service. And Jeff Mullis has already trumped me because he's made her an honorary senator this morning. So my words are not going to be near as impactful as what just happened to you, I'm sure. But your year's chair is not over yet. But at 9 months in, you've already led this organization to new heights. Even before your officer nomination, you are a stranger to no one in this room. I would say there are a few in this room that you haven't helped in some way. Most of us can tell at least one great Joanne story, can we not? People in this room, your friends, had these words and phrases to describe you: grace, tenacity, creative. I mean, really, who goes to pick up the Allies in a camouflage limousine? I mean, how awesome is that? Downright awesome. Warm, loving, hugs, exuberant, go with the flow, generous. This is my favorite, oomph. I think that's you. A woman who balances her personal and professional career like no one else I know. Join me in thanking a woman who holds the bar high for all of us, a true example of what a selfless leader should be, Joanne Lewis.
Angie, I don't know who you got those words from. I know you must have sent that question to a select group, but I do appreciate everyone's kindness who contributed. I'm glad you didn't ask some people I could name. But Mike, do we have our PowerPoint on some of the exciting things that's happened to GEDA? It has been an awesome year, and you know, sometimes you wonder if you can handle the service that has been thrown to you, but you do the best you can with the help of great people surrounding you. And I can't say enough about this organization. When I came into GEDA, everybody stepped up and helped me, and I just think that we all owe it to everyone else to be the friend, to be the professional network partner, for us to make things happen. And that's what you've done this year at GEDA. I want to go over just a few things. This will be very brief, of some accomplishments this year. And first, when we look at networking, we're 750 members strong. Now on the screen, you will see some of the meetings we've held and things we've done. But what's amazing is in the last 9 months, we've had 2,400 warm bodies at events that have been sponsored by GEDA. Give yourself a hand. That's a great number. When it comes to communication, we can't list them all, but anything from Deal of the Year being seen this year in Georgia Trend. We published and mailed a 2012 year in review. Oh my gosh, we came up with a new 50th year anniversary logo, and that was a process, I have to say, but it looks really good. We've got a YouTube channel now. We keep moving forward, and what's amazing is Mike and Candace and the board really understands the importance of social media and technology in general, and we're going to continue to be out there in front. We hired consultants to help us move forward. You know, as economic development professionals, we know, or we think we know the answer to everything, but we were smart enough to know we needed assistance. And I can't say enough about how they helped to put our story in the public. In 2013, we co-hosted the first Small Business Rockstar event. And I don't know how many of you were there, but it was a great lunch and a great celebration of small business, and I really see that growing more and more year to year. We actually went online with a lot of our applications. We created 4 new domains, and that goes back to technology and how we're using it. We actually developed a champion circle for sponsorship, and there's 5 slots and 4 is filled. So if anybody else wants to jump in, there's only 1 slot left for 2014. Highlighted each of the centers of innovation in our newsletter, and those of you that were here, and most of you were to hear Paige Siplon yesterday, he's doing a great job, and those centers are going to help us grow jobs and business throughout Georgia. And we have a new mobile-friendly site. There again, going right back to technology and where it's going to take us. When we look at the 50th anniversary, that was a lot of our focus this year. Everything from logos to the bookazine, timeline. And if you haven't visited our timeline, you need to go to the website and do so. So much interesting information there. We did a kickoff lunch in March. Video was produced by Quick Start. Can't say enough about that. And an annual conference with well over 500 people in attendance. I think that's remarkable. When we look at some of the other growth areas we've had this year, our sponsorship is up 31%. Our luncheons are up 15%. Spring was up nearly 40%, and annual conference is up 57%. I want you to give right here yourself and the staff a big hand of applause for the growth we've seen this year. And with all that said, there's a lot more that could be told, but what I'd like to encourage you to do is get involved. If you don't, you're missing out. Not only in the educational sessions, the information from the great speakers that we have at our conferences, our luncheons, all of our programs and events throughout the year, but the networking is so important to learn from each other. So I just appreciate so much serving as your chair in 2013. It will soon be over. I will gladly welcome Angie, but I will continue to work for an organization that has meant so much to me, both professionally and personally. Thank you for allowing me to serve.
This morning, I feel like a proud parent, or maybe a sister. I'm not going to go that sister. The 3 of us started out pretty much together within a year or 2 of each other at what was the Department of Industry, Trade, and Tourism with the regional program. And so you can understand the kinship that I have with these 2 and how proud I really am of both of them. As you all know, Gretchen was recently named the Commissioner for the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, and Tom Croto was named Deputy Commissioner of Global Commerce for the Department of Economic Development. And I know if you haven't congratulated them, you want to now, so let's give them a round of applause. I know you're also real eager to hear what their plans are in their respective departments. What I think is so awesome, especially about Gretchen's appointment, is that we've got a true economic developer at the Department of Community Affairs. We have a great relationship between those 2 agencies. I saw it firsthand for years, but I just can't imagine what this is going to mean for this state and for you to be as close as you are and working together. So I'm really excited about what's coming, but I want you to tell. I've talked enough. So I have some questions. First one's for both of you. Given each of your recent moves to your new positions, are there any staff changes or changes to roles in the organization that the people here should be aware of?
Well, thank you for having us this morning, and most importantly to all of our friends in the audience. How great is it to have Tom Croto as the Deputy Commissioner of Global Commerce for Economic Development? There was about a 2-second discussion about that. And so, as you all know, what I would say about Tom are 3 things. communities, projects, and the project managers and the economic developers around the state. He knows all of those details so very well. And so I really would say, I think you're going to be the best one out of all of us 20 to have come along so far. But in regards to staff changes, I was very smart and took Darlene immediately, right, Tom? No, Tom, Pat, Chris Comiskey were very kind also to say, it's okay, this is an okay time to do that. We have Tom's institutional knowledge and that will work well. So in regards to staff changes, in regards to the most important one with this group, probably Darlene Smith. And so you have, in addition to the DCA team and to myself, you have Darlene there, so feel free to give her a call. Before we maybe start with the DCA change or staff additions, because there really haven't been any changes, if I could ask the DCA staff members to stand up, because we've got a lot in the audience today. And it's real interesting because being in Tom's position, I was calling Brian on a daily basis. Brian, help, help. We've done this. We've said we could do it. And Brian would say, yes, we can get it done. And so it's a pleasure and an honor to work with the entire staff to be able to get the economic development piece done on the end. In regards to changes, we have some great additions coming on board. Nikki Knox, who is in the audience, will serve as our legislative coordinator. Mr. Chairman in the back, Nikki will be our most important person within the Department of Community Affairs to the legislature, and we're just thrilled that she's on board with us, and thank Dennis and Pat and Paul for providing Nikki and saying it's okay. She's part of a team, you can take her. So Nikki, for everyone in North Georgia, Michael Harden will become the Appalachian Regional Commission Director, and we're thrilled about that. A new gentleman who will enter the economic development industry, economic community development industry, is Mr. Phil Smith, and he will serve as my COO. And he is someone who, there are a couple of people in the room who know him and would vouch for him, but after you all meet him in about 6 months, you'll say he was supposed to be with us for years. Phil comes from, he lives in Atlanta, but has worked in DC at the nonpartisan think tank of the Concord Coalition. So very important budget items for the federal government. And as you all know, DCA receives a lot of funding from the federal government, so I'm thrilled about that. But I think for now, have I missed anything? I think that is about it. But we are very excited with those additions.
Thank you, Gretchen. Tom?
Well, for our changes, can everybody hear me at the back? Yeah, good. For our changes, I guess the biggest one is at the top, right? So we're going to have a new commissioner come November 1st, and Chris Comiskey is going to depart from us about October 11th, October 12th. So we'll have a little bit of time in there where we're in between commissioners, and Pat Wilson will be helping us at the helm during that period of time. I spoke to Chris Carr by phone yesterday, and I know he wishes that he could be here, but he talked about how much he was looking forward to getting to know everybody, really looking forward to listening to all of you about what your issues are, about what's going on in the communities and where our opportunities and challenges lie. Is Darlene here this morning? She's not here, okay. Well, I want to thank her for her 25 years plus of service to the Department of Economic Development. I think most of you know what she meant to us, what she means to us, and so glad that she's in a great place with Gretchen. So we're so happy for her, we're tickled for her. In terms of some of the other changes, when I moved into Gretchen's slot, Scott McMurray moved into the Director for International Investment, working with all of our foreign offices and working with our FBI team there in Atlanta. Annie Baxter moved into where Scott was as Director of our Logistics, Energy, Agribusiness, and Food team. A couple of additions. I think most of you know, but it's worth mentioning again, that Walt Farrell has joined the Department of Economic Development as Senior Project Manager on our manufacturing team, And thank you to Daryl for allowing Walt to come over and be with the Department of Economic Development. In addition to that, if you haven't met Joseph Hunterman, he is a recent addition to our staff as well. He's a Japanese-speaking project manager who's going to be working with Scott and helping him as Scott takes on more responsibilities in his role as director for the entire international investment team. So get to know Joseph. He actually came over from the Japanese consulate and has taught himself Japanese, which he didn't start until college, which is really just amazing. So those are probably the biggest additions to staff for us. I do want to mention one other thing. If you see Nico Weinberg, he got U.S. citizen status a week ago, which is really a great thing, so we're very happy for him as well.
Good. Thank you both. Gretchen, this one's for you. Probably had our whirlwind tour already, just in your 2 months at DCA. Share with us what is the most interesting or maybe surprising thing that you've learned about the agency in that period of time.
The agency or Chris Comiskey?
They'd probably like to hear both, actually.
Well, I figured out, I sent a text to Chris Comiskey and I said, I've always adored you, but now I'm beginning to respect you even more. And it was one of those days where I acted like I knew exactly where I was going, trying to get to the restroom, and thought, that's why Comiskey was running by my office in the first days, acting like he knew where he was going, and then turning around immediately, and I would be like, what is he doing? And that is it, really. Exactly trying to figure out where I'm going, what the agency is about, but what I have found is what we have all known to be true, and that is the people of the Department of Community Affairs are about getting it done for the communities and for the state of Georgia and for economic development. And in addition, not just getting it done, but the programs that are in-house. Over $250 million the Department of Community Affairs provides to our communities on an annual basis. $250 million. And so when someone said, you know, Gretchen, you're going to have a lot that, you know, you're going to be signing and it's going out the door, I could have never imagined. You know, I knew Reba, I knew One Georgia very well, but to look at AmeriCorps and to look at housing and to look at CDBG, what I have found has surprised me, and I hope that everyone else will hear from this, is before we ever should be, as community citizens, talking to the Department of Economic Development, or maybe while we are talking to the Department of Economic Development, we need to make sure that our elected officials, our community leadership is tapping all of the resources at DCA to make sure it's the community ready to place as the economic development product for the Department of Economic Development.
Thank you, Gretchen. Tom, there are a lot of people that are going to want to know about this one. Many of us have seen articles about the firearms industry or heard news reports about companies looking to relocate. Can you give us an idea of what Georgia's doing to take advantage of these opportunities?
Thank you. I'm really glad that you asked that question. But first, so ashamed. You know, you always forget the person that is the most important, right? I mentioned all these staff changes, and I left out Gina McKinney, who has taken Darlene's place. Gina, are you here? Please, if you haven't met Gina. And can I take 1 second to please ask our staff from the Department of Economic Development to stand and be recognized also. Thank you. Gina comes over to us from the Department of Labor, and she also worked in the legislature managing the entire pool of administrative staff over there. So she brings us great experience and great contacts and relationships, and I couldn't live without her already. So sorry about that, Gina, and thank you for allowing me to introduce her to you. On the firearms industry, you know, I'm sure that y'all are getting a lot of feedback from your constituents, because I know we're getting a lot of unsolicited feedback from the public, people calling and emailing and, wondering what we're doing and if we're doing anything. And so I think it is important for people here to know that we're very active in this industry sector in recruiting and being proactive about that. For years and years, we've gone to the gun show in Las Vegas in January, and some of you probably know that. But we're doing a whole lot more than that. But we are attending some of the trade shows and are more involved in the associations related to the firearms industry than we've ever been before. But in addition to that, we've contracted with a gentleman by the name of Bob Morrison, who was the former CEO for Taurus, a gun maker out of Brazil. And Bob is now retired and is working with Bill Dobbs and our manufacturing team to target companies, to set up appointment with companies. Bob really is a long-standing member within that industry. He's been Man of the Year for the industry actually more than once. So we're leveraging him and his contacts, making appointments, calling on companies. We actually have about a half dozen active projects right now with companies that we're working. So we're doing a lot of good things. I would say that we're really trying to do this from a business standpoint. And there are some people that contact us and come to us that really want to make this a political issue. And for us, it really is a business opportunity. So I think we're doing it more quietly than maybe some of the other states and some of the other governors that you see in the media. But it's been well received, and I think the companies that we have spoken to, for the most part, most of them really would rather do it in a confidential way if they truly are serious about looking at a new location or possibly relocating. So doing a lot of good things in this industry, and please let your constituents and your people know. And if you have any questions about that, please email me or Bill Dobbs.
Thank you, Tom. I know we touched on this a little bit, but drill down a little bit deeper and tell us what you see as DCA's role in economic development.
Well, obviously I'm here, right?
Yeah.
And Governor Dill basically said, as he said to our entire group yesterday, that jobs are his number one priority. And he has said that since the beginning of his term, and he has done he's done a fabulous job, hasn't he? Y'all have made that happen, so congratulations. We're really proud of the work that he has done, but it was very clear when Commissioner Beatty retired in regards to if jobs and economic development will continue to be the governor's number one priority. He said, will you go over there and kind of lead the team to make sure that we are continuing to support economic development in our top fashion. And so working with Brian Williamson and his team in regards to community and economic development and making sure that we are taking care of the projects that are coming in, that's going to be our number one priority. It's going to be our number one priority to make sure our regional specialists are collaborating with Tom's regional project managers for any information that the communities might need on projects. And it's, again, and you'll hear me continue to say this, the surprising part is I think as economic developers, we always think about the deal closing funds. Those are the easy ones to think about because they're what we have to think about really quickly, right, Tom? And Tom in his seat says to his project managers, okay, before you come to me with the deal closing funds, have you looked at EIP? Have you looked at ARC? Have you looked at other pieces? And we want to be there for that. But in addition, we want to make sure, again, that we are providing everything that we can to the communities. I've heard Joanne Lewis for years say, if I can just get them to Douglas and specifically drive them through downtown, I know that I have a really good shot. And so for us, downtown development is very important. And for us, making sure that the business part is not just available, but that it looks great is important. If Tom and the governor and Chris Carr are in Tokyo or anywhere else around the world and they're talking about Georgia, we want to make sure that we are providing the product to support his sales pitch. I'll also say, I've looked in the room and I see Al Hodge and I've also seen Trip Tollison walk in. The board of directors, in looking at the next group of directors to sit on the Department of Community Affairs, Governor Deal very quickly selected economic developers. Al Hodge, thankfully for me, was already serving at the Department of Community Affairs. Trip Tollison, and also our dear Chip Mitchell rolled in. And a lot of people say, well, Chip kind of rolled out of economic development and went to it. But very quickly the governor said, well, but wasn't it Chip and Annie that brought us Caterpillar? And so won't Chip be able to understand what incentives are important to a client? And doesn't he serve on the Downtown Development Authority Board? And so we just want to make sure that from DCA, we are looking at economic development as the #1 priority as well.
Those are 3 great appointments, and we know you inherited a fabulous staff.
Didn't I, though?
You definitely had that going for you, and then snagged Darlene. So what do you think, though? Because I don't think all of us can really appreciate how multifaceted DCA is. What would you want people in this room to know that possibly we don't know now?
Jones Hooks is not here today, I don't think, is he? But he was here. I saw him on Wednesday. And I would have not known until I was in my first week at DCA. I knew because of One Georgia that we are, the state of Georgia is a big piece of not just the Jekyll Island Authority, but also the new development that is going on at Jekyll, to be a part of that. But, you know, whether it's the new development that we're working on through One Georgia, or it's also, who would have known, or I would not have known, that we also fund the volunteers that take care of the turtles in the turtle hospital at AmeriCorps. And so whether it's really getting down into the brass tactics of site development or site prep or building, or it's the turtles on Jekyll, or it's making sure that we are providing affordable housing for the citizens of Georgia, it's just really surprising to see the depth and the breadth of DCA. And you will hear me say that, and hopefully my pitch will get even better and better about all of the programs, because I want to make sure that all of the communities are accessing them.
Great, thank you. Awesome responsibility you have. We understand, Tom, there are 30 industrial sites, which many people in this room have worked diligently to get in place that are grad certified. I think what we're curious about is, what do you expect to see as a result of the communities going through this process?
Yeah, thank you, Angie. You know, the grad program has been around for a few years now, and you at the community level have really done a great job of helping us certify communities in this state that really have great potential for development, and going through the process of getting them ready so that when clients come in, those environmental issues have been addressed, the wetlands have been identified and delineated, and those types of things. You know, what we haven't talked about this a whole lot to y'all in the past, and so I'm glad to have the opportunity to do this now. The grad program really has been under the Georgia Allies for a number of years now, and they've done a wonderful job with it to getting us to where we are, and we now have 30 sites that are certified. What it hasn't had is it really hasn't had the day-to-day attention from the Department of Economic Development that we feel that we're at the stage now that it needs. So we're really looking to take these 30 sites now and begin to promote them, to begin to put some resources aside for marketing them. We have a new PR firm for the Department of Economic Development. This is not something that's new for the department per se. We go through this process every few years where we refresh our PR department, but we're at a juncture, I guess, where we're really looking to take the grad program to the next level. And so what you're going to see in the next couple of weeks, we'll designate somebody on staff to be that staff champion within Global Commerce, to really oversee the program, be more involved on a day-to-day basis, be working with the communities that either have grad sites that have already been certified or are working on getting a site certified. Be talking to you about how to promote them better to consultants and companies both within the state and outside the state. And hopefully, you know, maybe come to a point where we can also put some additional resources into taking what are really good sites and making them great. I feel like in some regards, sometimes in the past we've put some money into taking, and this is probably not a fair statement, but taking an undeveloped area and a cow pasture and turning it into an industrial park. But it's really time for us to take existing sites and help them, raise them up to make them even better. One of the things that it's very tempting sometimes for whether we win a project or whether we lose a project to point to the incentives all the time as the reason that we won or lost. And sometimes that certainly is true. But I think if we're honest with ourselves, we could probably point to whether the site worked for that company just as often as the incentives. And we hear that all the time, right, from companies that, gee, the site just didn't work. And maybe you couldn't overcome it with, millions of dollars of incentives to try and bring it equal with the other site in another state. But we know that that's really a critical piece for us. We're seeing more built-to-suit sites than I'd say we have in a long time. And so we're really looking to up the ante to promote these grad sites and look forward to working with all of you on that as well.
Thank you, Tom. I know you pretty well. I know you probably hit the ground running after she found the bathroom. And just curious, are there any programs or services that you're already making changes in, or that you see possibly you will make some changes?
There definitely are. There are programs that we want to make sure that we are being more efficient in. But I think probably and there's some, what I have found, which you probably already know, is that a lot of this agency is housing, and which we as economic developers really don't discuss that much, do we? And at first I kind of cringed because it's not my natural element, but I will tell you, after getting to DCA, let me tell you something else that I found out about DCA. DCA, when you talk about departments who may have silos, DCA does not have silos. This leadership team has worked so well to make sure that the community and development financing group is working with the housing group group is working with the community development finance group. It's amazing. They'll work on different projects within one another's groups. Housing piece, there's affordable housing that we all know that is changing the landscape of America. It is not the affordable housing that we knew when we were growing up. It is a different type of affordable housing that I toured last week and called my husband and said, can we move? So it's very nice. But in addition, there's a Home Safe program. We have $239 million that Georgia has until 2017 to spend on assisting Georgians with their mortgages. These are hardest hit funds. These are monies that you and I, if we have had a friend, a family member who is unemployed or underemployed because of this recession, we have the ability to assist them with the mortgage for a little bit. So we're making sure that program is being marketed more, because I did not know about that. Did you know? I didn't know that much about it. And so we're learning, so we're marketing. On the economic development side, probably the program that I hear the most questions about is the Opportunity Zone. The Opportunity Zone has been an interesting tool for us over the past couple of years as economic developers. And getting in and really understanding the program. As Deputy Commissioner, it was a great program, right, Tom?
Right.
But getting in as the responsible party and making sure to the citizens of Georgia and to the legislature that we are using this tool correctly, because at the end of the day, from my perspective, it's a return on investment question. The Opportunity Zone, as you know, provides the opportunity for a company, if they locate in one, to take a withholding tax. Well, that's great, as long as the entire state of Georgia is not an opportunity zone, because then there's no incentive, and then it doesn't serve the first purpose that it was made for, and that is redevelopment of slum and blight. So when you look into your communities and you think about where do we need to redevelop, it's probably not the new green space, gorgeous business park. As much as economic developers, we like that, right? But the truth of the matter is, getting in and researching a little more about the Opportunity Zone. Did y'all know that in 2005, that was our first Opportunity Zone, and it was in Estella? That's what opportunity zones are about. They're about the redevelopment of an area. Osceola had an area that needed to be redeveloped. There's an area in Bartow County that I've watched, an old industrial area that was having a lot of hard times getting people in the buildings. They now have people in the buildings. But we have grown from Osceola to, in the next couple of years, maybe 5 programs. And then within 2 years, we had 69 opportunity zones in 2 years. And now I have 20 that are waiting on at my desk to go through. And so there's a very big piece of research that I'm doing right now in what are the right opportunity zones. We want to use this tool in a responsible manner that will be good for economic development, that will be good for our communities, but that will also be good for Georgia in the long term. We all have seen in California where they rolled out so many opportunity zones, but they're having to phase them out now. And so I never want to get to that point. I want to get to a very responsible point. So myself, Commissioner Carr, and others, we're going to be looking at this program to make sure that it's doing the best for Georgia while receiving the best benefit. So I say that to kind of give you an update as to we are researching it. And if you're wondering, if you're one of those 20 individuals and you're saying, why hasn't Commissioner Corbin, Commissioner Carr gotten back to us? That's why. We're really looking at these. And so what I would ask for you is your patience and your discussion with me for a dialogue so that we can all discuss what is the best way to move this program forward in a responsible manner.
Thank you. I think for the local economic developer, I think a lot of people would agree that we are paying more attention to housing now.
Good, thank you.
It makes the job more awesome than taking on one thing, but economic development really covers it all. But I think a lot of people don't realize that you have that function.
Tom, one of our great members of housing, asked me the other day, how often did your prospects ask about housing? And I thought, well, they asked a lot about executive housing, but not necessarily affordable. But then I looked back at him and I said, you know, it's because you do a good job. It's because they don't have to ask, because it's already here in place. If we weren't doing our job, they would be asking a lot. So again, it's about the basics in making sure that whether it's affordable housing, it's downtown, it's water and sewer through CDBG, that we are making sure that the communities are ready for all of you when you go out to market.
Thank you. Tom, similar question or same question for you. What do you see moving forward in your role?
Well, it's probably a little bit easier for Gretchen to answer this question since she is commissioner, and I've got one that's coming in another month and a half, and so for me to get up here on stage and say, oh, we're going to do this and that. But I will say that, you know, this gives me an opportunity to address one thing that I'm really excited to talk to you guys about, which is, you know, we've always had a little bit of a tradition of when GEDA is in Atlanta of having folks, local economic developers and others that are involved in economic development to come through and visit with some of our project managers in the hallways, in their offices. And I think over the years, for one reason or another, even though y'all have always been welcome, we at one point moved. We went to higher security within the office where we required people to have an escort, and there were locks on the doors and that type of thing, which has probably made it a little bit more difficult. So I really would love to reinstitute a true open house for GEDA on GEDA Mondays when we are in Atlanta. I've talked to our head of admin about your GEDA badge being your entryway into the department. So you won't need an escort. You're welcome to come in. You don't need to sign in. Just walk right past, say hello to our lovely receptionist, Myosha, and we will be ready for you. We're going to have coffee. We're going to have cakes. We're going to try and really make it a feeling of an open house. We're going to ask our project managers, if they're not out with prospects, if they're not traveling, that they try and make a bigger effort to be in the office. And look forward to the next meeting, of course, is with Angie in Houston County But November, I think we're back in Atlanta and look forward to hosting you all then.
We greatly appreciate that opportunity. I think you know that, or you wouldn't have come up with this idea for us. But you know, one of the values of being part of this group, especially the local economic developer, is to have access to your people. And I think sometimes you can't make it over to lunch, but maybe you could be around in the afternoon. And to hear that from you will make such a big difference. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and when Gretchen was named as commissioner and I was asked to serve in her role, Mike and Joanne came to me early on and got together and said, we want to make sure that we continue to grow together, that we continue with our strong attendance from project managers, which is up a good deal from where we were a couple of years ago, both from budget and from Gretchen's help in putting a higher emphasis on it. And so I give a lot of credit to Mike and Joanne for helping me to come up with the idea and supporting it and getting it, and we're all very excited about it.
Thank you. You know, many of us spend a lot of our time, if you're on the local level, educating your folks at home. And I know that a lot of your board members left, but if there's still some board members here, and even our legislators that are still here, but not necessarily members of GEDA, or if you are, doesn't matter, would y'all stand up for just a minute and let us see? Or if you brought community people and they've gone home, stand up so we can see how many people, because Joanne brought an army. She's not standing, but yeah. Thank y'all. Thank you for what you do. You can make our jobs really easy, or you can make them very difficult. And we're grateful for the ones that are committed and will come here and find out firsthand of what this world is all about and how to better support. But in that vein, what would y'all want us to take back to our communities? What are the takeaways that you'd like for us to relay back at home?
I think I would just kind of echo what Tom has said, even though I would say spend your GDA Monday with Tom. When you have your delegation or your group or your elected officials to Atlanta, stop by the community affairs to make sure that we've taken care of all the basic needs. I think about all the groups that we see at the Department of Economic Development. I'll tell you, having been there eight weeks now, where it feels like a great 8 months, I've seen 3 GDA members, one the GDA chair and 2 others who serve on our board. So I would but I think about all of the basic conversations we have at the Department of Economic Development. They're really high level ones that need to be done there. But then there are some basic ones about opportunity zones, about CDBG, about water and sewer, and those are pieces that we can help you with at the Department of Community Affairs, so that Tom and his team can spend time working with you on really closing those deals. So whatever we can do to support Tom, I would say bring your group in.
Yeah, I think I would say what I would want your constituents, your leadership to know is that we want to hear from you, that we need to hear from you, that we want to welcome you to talk to us, to come and visit with us, to help us to get to know your communities better and better. Because at the end of the day, as you all know, you are the product that we are selling, and we can't afford to get out of touch with what you have to sell. You know, we understand that there are different pockets of activity that go on in the state. We know that Northwest Georgia, for instance, has been very busy, that the flooring industry has been very active recently, that depending on what type of industries are moving, whether it's the auto industry or whether the aerospace industry or whether it's shared services and offices, that sort of drives where some of this development goes and where our prospects end up looking. So we have some communities that are right now very active and have a number of active projects, and we have others that come to us and say, gee, what's going on? Why is it that we haven't seen any prospects for a long time now? So what I would say is if you have leadership that wants to understand about that activity, we're happy to speak to them. I want to invite you to come up and bring them with you, and let's talk about what we're seeing in terms of prospects and activity. But also, if you are not seeing projects right now for whatever reason, then we really need to hear from you even more, right? I mean, we need to know more than ever what you have in terms of buildings and industrial sites and leadership and assets, because it is easy for project managers when you are bringing prospects to a community that for whatever reason is active. Every time you go there and you go there with a prospect, you learn more and you process more. And so it becomes easier to recommend that site again. And so if you have a site or if you are part of a community that hasn't seen projects, please come and talk to us about your assets and make sure that we're not overlooking you.
Thank you, both of you. Great advice for all of us to take away. I think we're out of time, and I bet y'all are really wanting to ask some questions. We're out of time. But thank you. There may not be a question left in the room, actually, but they're around. I can speak for them both. They're both very approachable. So they mean what they say what they mean. So join me in thanking both of them.